right, thank you, everybody. One of the last panels here, but thank you for joining us. Hope everyone's having a good ETHDenver so far. Today, we're going to be chatting about decentralized media on Ethereum. I am the host and founder of the community-owned media outlet Coinage, former anchor with Yahoo Finance and CNBC. I just want to run through kind of why decentralized media matters and why it could be the best shot that we have at proving out why decentralization and ownership in Web3 really matter. I don't know if we can see our screen here if we bring this up. Maybe we can, perhaps. There we go. All right, so we're going to start this with two different questions. First, why decentralize something? And specifically, why decentralize media? And hopefully by the end, we'll show that it solves a very specific problem in media. And I just want to start with a very simple premise, and that is that decentralization really only matters when it's serving a purpose. And I think, a good example, in 1776, when America rejected the king in favor of democracy, it was rooted in one thing, that decentralizing power solved something, that it created a more fair, just, and trusted society. But indeed, the concept alone wasn't really that rallying cry, because that's kind of convoluted. In fact, they simplified it into something much sexier, which was, we're going to reject the monarchy for democracy. And they had this phrase, no taxation without representation. And I think in crypto, we've arrived at a weird point in time where there's a similar revolution going on in Web3, and I'm calling it our Boston Tea Party moment in time. And the reason for that is because we've been promised this solution, this read, write, own. That's what everyone refers to Web3 as. And I want to focus today on that last piece, the ownership part of Web3. What does the own in read, write, own really mean? And I would say that this is what it looks like. This is what ownership in crypto looks like. And this could be a layer one, this could be a meme coin, this could be a few hours, or this could be a year. But really, it is just ownership over that. As more tokens come out, price goes down, and the question is, what do you really own? This is the ownership you get. And I would say that meme coins are actually even worse because they were supposed to be about community. It was supposed to be that we would all team up together in meme coin land. And Murad, one of the big voices in meme coins, his phrase, stop trading and believe in something, I think it's even worse than that, because if you're in Web3, you really do want to believe that this technology is here to create community. And I'm going to propose that we should have a different viewership of ownership in Web3. And in fact, we shouldn't have that phrase of stop trading and believe in something, but we should have stop simping and own something, is what I'm calling this new age. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we should rethink what it means to own in Web3, that we really do need to own something and not just have a token that gets dumped on us again and again. And so today I want to talk about what that means in Web3 and how when you bring together a community that owns something together, you can actually add to the value of the thing. And so let's talk about it in this lens of why decentralize and what is the purpose. And that is how we get to why media, why decentralized media. And I want to start with explaining what Coinage is as a community-owned outlet and my background in traditional media as an anchor at Yahoo and CNBC. And it's something that Elon Musk and everyone else has been talking about, which is, right now, trust in media is at an all-time low, which is very bad for a number of reasons. But one of the worst things is that we can't even agree on fact, like objective fact. And societies tend to fall apart. Indeed, we saw that in the revolution. Things fall apart when societies can't agree on fact. And so when trust is at an all-time low, I would say, why is that? And I think what we've seen is we have major outlets catering to their bases and actually getting to more extreme edges. You can have a CNN that really appeals to liberals or a Fox that really appeals to conservatives and actually get more and more extreme because they're trying to optimize for ads. And so the question is, can you flip that model on its head and not optimize for ads, but optimize for a community that owns you and gets to influence the content? And you could say, well, you could do that, or you could have a billionaire own this thing. And I would say, I don't think that that model's any better. You can look at what happened with the Washington Post and Jeff Bezos and how a lot of editors quit there. So the question is, what can we do with Web3? And I'll say that coming from the traditional media world, we've seen the rise of other platforms and independent creators with Patreon, Substack, this idea of creators charging subscribers to fund independent media. And I think that's cool, and you could also say that we've seen that with OnlyFans. It's a very similar thing. You can charge and unlock content that way. And it's kind of interesting in that, again, you're somewhat simping. You don't really grow with this creator. You pay them, and you get to unlock their content. But at the end of the day, you don't really own anything. And so at Coinage, we try to tackle a new paradigm, which is what happens if you break down the wall between a content creator and their fans. If you're following someone, you already have a shared passion. If you're following an influencer in the food space, you love food. And so what happens when you can tap into that power of their followers? And at Coinage, we've done something very similar with Patreon and OnlyFans. The difference is, you can unlock content. I'm not naked on Coinage. But it's the same thing in terms of you can mint an NFT and unlock content, and all of that goes into a DAO, which is community owned. And outside of just doing kind of Patreon or doing kind of OnlyFans, we also launched NFTs that let people co-own the outlet with us. And what does that enable is the big question. And what we've seen in our little existence is that when people mint these membership tokens, they can vote on the content. It actually leads to more trusted content because there's transparency in terms of bringing together conflicting biases within a community. You can have someone who says one thing and debate it in our token-gated Telegram, and you can have co-owners vote, so it's not just, again, a biased media outlet trying to push one agenda. And actually, as we've done this, we've actually seen Coinage grow faster than the competition in year one because by converting a passive subscriber into a co-owner, it's actually led to more engagement. And so when you put all that together and you think about what a community-owned outlet might look like, we are actually one of the first in the US as an NFT project to pay a distribution back to our NFT holders. And obviously, if you're here, you're familiar with SporkDAO. And so that is maybe not new to you. But in the world of media, I would say that it is revolutionary in the idea of bringing together a community to serve a higher purpose, to serve for more transparent and trusted media, very much in line to what we were doing back in 1776. But I think we have a little bit of a new type of political cartoon to bring it all home, which is join or die, because I think what we're building is frankly pretty important for crypto as we try and bring together conflicting tribalist communities across, not just Ethereum, to be honest with you, but across the rest of the world of crypto. And so if you want to get involved, this is the QR code to head to coinage.media to learn more about us as a community-owned media outlet. And I want to thank some of our members who are out here as well for making this all possible too. And similarly, we just saw the Ethereum Foundation go through a lot of changes. We ourselves are actually nominating our board at Coinage, which are all just people that I met through launching this. So that is kind of Coinage in a nutshell when it comes to decentralized media. For the rest of the panel, we're actually going to be joined by someone else who is building similarly in decentralized media and the idea of decentralized ownership over IP. And he will be joining us in just a moment. Andrea Muttoni, president of Story Protocol Foundation, will be coming up here as well. But he's actually sprinting over from another panel, but he will be up here shortly. But I think, one of the main things to describe in all of these comparisons back to this model is that, I'll speak to this as a creator, which is there's incredible benefits that come from having a community bring their own positive network effects to a community where you can pay a dividend out. And that is that it opens doors in ways that you might not even expect. So at Coinage, we actually run validators on a bunch of different chains, mostly because one of our members had an existing relationship with a company that was running validators, and he completely left crypto and passed those along to us. And so I just use that as an example in terms of bringing together people who, again, are in the same content niche and have similar interests and vote on these things with us to help us make the space better, not just by covering crypto, by the way, in a more transparent and trusted fashion, but also in a way that lets us walk the walk as a DAO. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. And I think Andrea is also here, I think, maybe? Nope, we don't know yet. So we're gonna wait for him to come back up here. But I think that's mostly everything that I had to say about Coinage. The other interesting thing is, as we abstract away, and I think the whole entire crypto industry is at this moment in time, is when you abstract away the crypto piece, this same model applies to not just crypto, but really the rest of media in general. The idea of creators owning things with their fans in this type of way is not necessarily, I think, the best way to unlock that creative passion across, a content creator's followers. Instead, when you do things like this, and you let people vote on content, it again unlocks those doors. I feel like we all get it now, which is very good. But until Andrea gets here, I'll take questions from the audience if there are any. I don't know. There could be. Yes. You bought one yesterday. Very good. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, the idea, by the way, I don't want to shill this any harder than I already have, but the idea of creating a scarce supply of NFTs that correspond with ownership in something like this is that you can kind of grow over time in a sustainable way. I think if we go back to this chart and the idea of crypto projects trying to figure out what the right quantity is that you're basically trying to figure out what supply is going to look like or what demand is going to look like in the future. And if you have a certain amount of tokens that correspond to a certain amount of memberships that correspond to ownership over a DAO, you can actually adjust that over time, depending on how many memberships you want to sell a year, which is very different than the idea of just launching tokens into a liquidity pool and kind of winging it and hoping that price doesn't do this, which I think is very important when it comes to the way of sustainably growing over time. Which again is very different than I think what meme coins are doing right now. We're still waiting, I think, for Andrea, wherever he may be, coming from the other panel. But if there's any other questions, I'll take those too. Yes, one more over here. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Very cool. What kind of creators do you seek for your platform, or what kinds of creators have had the most success on your platform?
Good question. Right now, the idea of where we go from here is Coinage has proved this model out in terms of dividends, patronage dividends, which again, here in Colorado is a concept that SporkDAO has basically pioneered, the idea of bringing together what's called a limited cooperative association, which is really just you mint an NFT, you become a member in a thing, in a DAO, and it enables you to pay patronage dividends if someone's active. And that model, again, when you abstract it away, works in any niche, because again, you're tapping into the creative aspects of a creator's following. And so we've done this in the food space with food influencers in New York. That's a separate entity. But I think as it works, we're seeing more and more creators in every niche come to us. And I think if you think about objective fact and this piece, I think the main thing is that you can bring together disparate groups in the same content niche. And so there are experiments like this, by the way, in Patreon and other independent creators that have come from Politico who start their podcasts and they host, Crossfire, I might think of another example of bringing together people on the right and people on the left and talking about what this looks like when you just try and focus on objective fact. But the ad model doesn't really support that so much. And so when you bring together people who really want to support the overall thing that you're putting out, or support the creator in a way that's different than kind of what Substack and some of these other models like that offer, we've seen that work in a bunch of different content niches. So the answer to your question is really anything. anything at all. And honestly, like, obviously, a crypto media outlet is very different than this conference, by the way. In terms of tokenized ownership, a tokenized media outlet doesn't look at all like what we're here for. But the concept still works in terms of aligning interests between a token holder and the overall DAO to create value, which I think is important. If Andrea's not going to be coming over here, I think we might just call it there. So thank you very much for the questions. I want to say thank you, and thank you to the Coinage members who came out. And if you want to, you can head to coinage.media as well to join us as we try and pioneer the decentralized media revolution. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.